This episode of HTM Tech is brought to you by Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy offers a wide range of products including energy drinks and dietary supplements containing 0 sugar, 0 to 5 calories, B vitamins, gluten-free, soy-free, and 100% vegan. Rogue Energy products are a great alternative to those corner store energy drinks that are loaded with sugar and cause you to crash soon after. Head over to rogueenergy.com where viewers of HTM Tech can get 10% off any order placed. Not just your first order, but any time you order. Just use offer code HTM Tech at the checkout to get your discount on one of the hottest energy drink brands on the market. Hey, don't take our word for it. Try it for yourself today.
Hey guys, Joe the Tech Guy back here with another episode of HTM Tech. For those of you new to the channel, thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can get notified every time I release new content. For those of you returning, thank you so much for joining us. As you can see, I am not alone this week. This is actually episode 2 that I'm doing this week. I'm doing a double episode because there's a little posting that I saw on some hacky social media site there, and I was going, that's a potential HTM Tech episode. So I decided to bring in my good friend, Mr. Matthew Shaffer from the SMB review. Tell us what you have going on before we kind of get into what we're going to talk about here, because you did something kind of crazy there a little while ago, my friend.
What's going on as far as SMB podcast? Good. We just dropped episode number 222.
Jesus, that's a lot.
Broadway Bro Down just came out, so that's available now on all podcast networks. Still going strong with Light the Fuse. Check that out every week with Ben Hameen. And now I'm living in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm on the East Coast now, so that's pretty cool. So that's what's going on with me.
Sweet. All right, so the reason why we are here this week is this is probably like one of the most talked about applications kind of going on right now. It's kind of the buzz, because for like the longest time on the Apple platform, they have kind of steered clear of these kind of applications for various different reasons. You know, one of the main ones, obviously, one of Apple's main concerns right from the get-go of the original App Store is they always wanted to make sure that any user that downloads an app from the Apple Store can be ensured that the game will run properly, that it's not pretending to be something it's not, it doesn't crash. And like I said, those are always been kind of like the core values of the Apple App Store apps. And emulators just never really kind of fit that kind of mold. But recently, thankfully, a very cool thing happened is we have a really cool Nintendo emulator called Delta that this dude has literally just been sitting on for quite a while now and kind of just fine-tuning it and just waiting for the day for Apple to okay it. It happened, dude. And that's what we're going to talk about here, because this is actually, I'm really digging this. For the majority, there's some downsides. It's not perfect, but we'll kind of get to that. But your initial thoughts on this app, because I know you love the retro game stuff as much as I do. So this was a nice surprise to hear about. I was pretty stoked.
So, first off, I found out about the app because I subscribed to RGT85, and he was reviewing it on his channel and talking about how it just came out. And I was like, what?
Fellow Canadian too, by the way, I think.
What? No, he lives in New York.
We'll pretend he's Canadian.
Okay. Anyway, so I'm watching this video. I'm like, what? So I immediately open up the App Store, type in Delta, and there it is. I was like, no way. So I download it, and of course, immediately go to my Facebook. I'm like, go get the Delta app now before it gets taken down, because you never know. Nintendo could come in. Somebody was telling me that it was taken down. Like, it was down for 2 days. And then I was like, no, I just got it. And they're like, really? I'm like, I just came back up. So maybe it might have been taken down. So go get it while you can. My initial thoughts have been good so far, as far as with the games I've tried. I know you'll get into more maybe the 64 aspect, but as far as with the Game Boy Color games that I've tested, right now I'm playing Pokemon Crystal, which is, it's running perfectly, no issues.
Right.
I already went ahead and downloaded Super Mario World. As everyone knows, I'm a huge Super Mario World fan. I've got it in every freaking console. If I was 10 years younger, I'd probably be speed running this game. But I ended up downloading not just a regular one. I downloaded a ROM hack because I was like, let's download a ROM hack. So I downloaded that to see how it worked. No issues. So far, it's been, the functionality has been pretty good. Minor criticisms because it is touchscreen. Sometimes the D-pad can be finicky. Maybe you're pressing down and it kind of goes left just because it is a touchscreen. So maybe for faster fighting games and stuff like that, flying games, I could see how that might be challenging to use from a touchscreen. That might be something you want to hook up an external controller to. But for slower based games, like I'm playing Pokemon right now, or just moving Mario back and forth left to right, no issues. So far, I've liked everything I've seen.
It's not ever going to be a replacement for like an actual Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, or Super Nintendo, whatnot, because you're not going to exactly get that, like that. Supposed to kind of words. You're not going to really get that tactile feel of an actual click of an actual button. They do a good job, with that little haptic feedback to give you a little bit of indication that you've pressed a button. But yeah, like as you can see on my screen here, I've got Super Mario Land from Game Boy on mine, kind of going. Yeah, and as Matt just said, the games run really, really well. With some exceptions there that I'll kind of get to, but pretty much like any Game Boy, NES, Super Nintendo, N64, and I think I've got them all. Pretty much any of those apps that you can dig up online, you're going to be able to copy over and put onto this app. And a really cool thing, and this is showing you too, like how far we've come with technology when it comes to storage. A lot of these games are like in kilobytes and megabytes in size. Right now, current day, we're talking gigabytes with most things, right? So that's one really cool thing is you're going to be able to put a lot of games onto your phone without taking up a whole lot of space, and that's a really, really cool thing.
No, it is. Like, I mean, I'm not going to promote to you or where to do it, but like archive.org, you can go find a lot of these games that are backed up, and they're just in zip files, and you just download 600 plus Game Boy Color games for like a gig. You know what I mean? Or you get the whole Super Nintendo library, which I have on my Wii, or the Game Boy Advance library, because you want to play Mother 3, but the English language translation, since it never came to America. But yeah, the files are so small, they're so minuscule. And we got some feedback. Shout out to Wayne Noon. He was saying he couldn't get it to work properly from a button standpoint, but I also maybe point out, maybe you downloaded a corrupted ROM. Maybe that's why, because any ROM that I've put in so far, I haven't had, it doesn't give you the option, and maybe it will in the future to button map, maybe with an update. But so far, any ROM I've put in with all of the skins that they've lined up as far as in the app itself, from your, what is it? They've got your 64, you've got your Super Nintendo, you've got Game Boy Color, you've got Game Boy Advance, and you've got Nintendo DS, right? Because that's the emulator it's working off of as a Nintendo DS.
Yeah, for sure. And that's going to be the thing with this too, is try and go out to some of the more popular ROM sites. If you start going to, rule of thumb with Google, when you start getting to like page 2 and 3 and 4 of your search results, you're not going to be running into the most high quality stuff out there. So try and go to some of the more better known websites for your ROMs. And knowing that too, it's not perfect. You're going to run to the occasional ROM. I did run into a couple that just either didn't work or were all funkified, right? So it just,
I'm just telling you, just go to Google archive.org, okay? It's a website. Just go to archive.org and you'll find, I'm not going to tell you what to type in, but go to archive.org and you can find these free ROMs.
For sure. Yeah, that's probably going to be your best option there for that. Now, my big kind of con with this is, and I think this is largely due to just a product of what the N64 originally was. That controller, even in real life in your hand, was already pretty... with the PG way, I can kind of put this effed up.
Yeah.
So it was odd, right? So now trying to translate over to software controls on something that's much smaller than an N64 controller, my expectations were low going into that. So I put GoldenEye on there and tried to play it. Basically unplayable. Like if you were just using the touch controls on the screen. So, resourceful me thought, you know what? I will slap this bad boy onto my phone. Because for those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, I did review this as well. It works with mixed results because the big issue, and this is something that can be fixed with a software update. So if the developers of Delta are watching this, you need to add support for a start button, because once you put this on here, the on-screen buttons disappear and none of it is mapped to include a start button. So every other button works just fine and dandy, but you can't press start. So that results in you having to take your phone in and out of the controller, which is not super convenient. A slight annoyance, but for some people it could be extremely annoying to the point where they're just not going to do it. So again, that's something that could be updated. But currently, using a controller that you can attach like this works for like 90% of what you need to do, but not everything. And then for the N64 stuff, it's something that they need to work on. But I mean, at the end of the day, that might be one that I'm going to personally steer clear of. I know there's a lot of good N64 games that can be played, but they're not really going to work great on this. So I'm going to personally stick to my bread and butter, which is the Game Boy and the Super Nintendo. I mean, those are the systems that I fondly remember as a kid. So that's the stuff I'm going to be delving into.
Yeah, no, I agree. I played a lot of more Game Boy Color and advanced games, so I'll probably utilize it for that. Like I said, I've already got most of the Super Nintendo library on my Wii, so I play a lot on that for my Super Nintendo games, because I've also got the classic Wii controller as well, right? So I play a lot with that.
Nice. I haven't seen one of those in a long time.
Thanks, buddy.
Those are cool. Yeah.
So I play a lot of that. So I play a lot with those. If I play my Super Nintendo games, I use that controller and I play on that side because you kind of almost get that realistic feeling. Now I do have this Nintendo stress releaser thing that I can squeeze when I'm mad,
cool.
but that's about the extent of my Nintendo playing these days. Nintendo, it's hard for me to go back and play regular NES games. There's only a few NES games here and there, and it's not because they're like I don't care about the graphics. It's just the games. Some of the games are just, I don't know, a little janky for me. There's a couple, like, obviously the original TMNT, Angry Video Game exposed it, how we can finally beat that fucking thing. So when I got the game, me and both Vernola were like, oh my God, we finally beat TMNT for the first time. So like, there's a couple NES games, I did like the original Tecmo Bowl, even though Tecmo Super Bowl, which you can get on the ROMs, that's a much better game for the SNES.
See, for me, like three of my favorite go-tos, I usually have them in the background because some people have mentioned, hey, you got some Super Nintendo carts in the background, and I certainly do. We have Earthbound.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I love that game.
And we have Turtles in Time, which of course I have both of these on my Delta app. Not yet, but an old version of NHL 96. 96. Yeah, although 94 I thought was better.
96, the last 96. Year the Hartford Whalers were in a video game.
Yep, absolutely. So it's a really cool thing. Now, having said that too, one thing that I really would like to see, whether it's this developer, because I mean the floodgates may or may not open with this, and we'll see some of the emulators. I really want to see like GameCube, PS2. Higher than that, it starts to get a little kind of difficult to do. But some of those other systems that I really, really love, like I said, the big ones would be PS2 and GameCube. I would love to see emulators on iOS for that too. That would be really, really cool.
Now, of course, neither of us have tested this feature out, but it is an emulator in here. I'm interested to see how the DS works on this, right? Because the functionality of the touchscreen will play nicely into a lot of the games that have the touchscreen. But because of the size of our phones, is that going to be a hindrance? Because it's going to really decrease the screen size. You know what I mean?
That's where something like this,
the iPad, comes in. Yeah,
could come in, and especially for some of the other systems, now that you have a bigger canvas to play with, that really opens up the option there. So, yeah, I'll be really curious to see, and if other ones do come out, I'm definitely going to cover them on this channel, because now that emulator floodgate has potentially been opened in iOS, there's some potential for some cool stuff there. Now, you had mentioned, Apple could backpedal on this, or we could run into some regulatory issues. Time will tell. But for the time being, there's this Delta app out there, and it's really, really cool, and I highly recommend it. There are some caveats there. There are a couple of little glitches and issues there, but those may get resolved. But at its core, there's something really cool there to just throw it on your phone while you're sitting in the bus and just get a quick fix while you're on your way to work.
I mean, the fact is, perfect. Right, as being part of the iOS ecosystem, unless we decide to jailbreak our technology, which it's not hard to do, but unless we decide to jailbreak it, there really is no way to modify it in such a way where we could put an emulator on our phones or the iPads or the Mac itself in the past. So this is a big win for Apple winners. And I feel like it's a big win for Apple as a company, letting this kind of shit finally hit their iOS Apple store, because you're opening up the floodgates for more users. Now there might be somebody who went, well, I wasn't going to get an Apple because I never could put emulators and do shit on there, but now I can do that. So fuck, I might get an Apple iPhone next time, because if I can emulate my video games on here like I do on my Android and download games and hook up my backbone to it, or whatever type of, device accessory, then that might be another selling point. So Apple owners rejoice. We finally got an emulator, a working emulator, and we didn't have to fucking jailbreak our shit and put Linux on it.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely a win. And yep, like I said, I want more now because it works really well. Whether it's this dude or whether it's somebody else, just give us more, and we will definitely be happy about it.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I'm excited to see where they go from here. You know, I agree with you. I like one of the features I do like about the Delta app is I do like that haptic feedback a little bit, right? So it does give you that feeling of that you're actually pushing the button. You know, it's not as true to form as say pushing down an actual, you know, button
Yep.
on a controller like I'm doing right here with the pad or something like that. But you know, it gives you that feeling, and it's for the most part 90% functional to the point where if you're playing kind of a slower based game, an RPG, a Pokemon, you
Yep.
know, Mario, the functionality is gonna work. If you're gonna play something higher paced, fighting, you know, shooting, some sort of what is it? What are those games called where they're just shooting things on the screen? They're little fucking
Just like a top-down shooter.
yeah, like a top down
Yeah.
shooter, something like that. Like you know, a controller. You're gonna want something like that
Yep.
because you're gonna want more instant feedback.
So what I challenge, whether it's this developer or somebody out there in the iOS developer community, you know, especially if you could play on something like this or a Mac or something, is come up with something. I don't care if it's like a hub or adapter or something, but give us the ability to plug those old school controllers into what we want to play it on. Damn, that would be really, really cool if somebody could make that happen. I'm not smart enough to, but maybe somebody out there can figure that out, because now that we have access to emulators and somebody can come up with some connectivity to hook up those old school controllers, then you're off to the races.
What's interesting too from the iOS standpoint, I can't speak to every controller that's going to use this, but I tried using my Pro controller to Bluetooth to my iPhone, so it it connects to the iPhone, but then it still sits there and flashes, like, so it doesn't fully connect, and then you can't utilize that for the game. So you're definitely going to need to go probably third party to pick up a controller for your iPad or your iPhone if you want the full functionality of this app.
Yep. So looking forward to seeing what can grow from this, because I think there's potential for some really cool stuff. So we'll see. And if that happens, like I said, I'm definitely going to talk about it on this channel.
I can't disagree with you there, bud.
All right, man. Well, I guess that about wraps it up here. Before we do go, in case you didn't mention at the top of the show, what is coming up next on SMB?
That's right. Each and every week, SMB, South Park Review. Check out linktr.ee/South Park Pod. Available on all podcast outlets. This upcoming episode is 1%. What happens when Eric Cartman fails the the standardized physical test at school? And as a result, the rest of the school is punished. They have to take extra, PE classes, don't get to do resets, and they're fed up. So Cartman, he becomes part of the 1%, with the rest of the 99% upset at him. And of course, one of my favorite lines from this episode that I probably use all the time. Oh, sir, why did you come to a Red Robin? Oh, I came here for a burger and a bottomless fries. So check out that review coming up this week.
Awesome. Coming up on the next episode of HTM Tech, because I want a better roll with episodes here, I'm going to take a break until next week, is one of the big kind of buzzwords and topics going on in the world of technology is artificial intelligence, AI. That's what I'm going to dig into the next episode here. I'm not sure if I'm going to have some more peeps with me with that, but we'll see. Because, even with Apple stuff, since we're kind of talking about Apple stuff here, there's talk that they may really kind of get further into that arena as well. And is it a good innovation for technology going forward? That's going to be the big discussion that we're going to kind of get to is AI a good thing for tech going forward? That's going to be the topic. So looking forward to talking about that one. Yep. That about wraps up here for this time. And we'll see you on the next one where we talk about how tech matters.
HTM Tech is brought to you by Microplay. Located at 265 King George Road in Brantford, Ontario, Canada, for all of your video game and collectible needs.